Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
Hey, Bandit, me and Fred's got a question.
What do you and Fred want?
How come we doing this?
Well, why not?
Well, they said it couldn't be done.
Well, that's the reason, son.
3 movies that have changed your life.
How long have you been a robber?
4'1".
Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1".
Yes.
Well, that is a long time.
3 movies that have changed your life.
John, I want this material burned. All of it.
Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My name is Stuart Wright, and today's guest is Rolando Viñas, the screenwriter of Stay Safe, a film set in a near-dystopian, quarantine sci-fi world that intersects with dark supernatural forces. Welcome to the show, Rolando.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we get going into any details, do you want to give the listener a reason to go watch it by giving them a brief synopsis as to what Stay Safe is about from your point of view?
Okay, well, Stay Safe is about this medical person in the military who is trying to manage this pandemic that's going on in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And she's doing her best to try to contain it. But then she lets in a stranger into her home to protect her, not realizing that she's letting in an evil entity that is going to be coming between her and her boyfriend.
From a screenwriting point of view, then, what for you is the kernel of the idea that you began with that led us to the film that we see now called Stay Safe?
Well, for context, it was a work for hire. At the time, the producer had acquired a script, and they were having trouble getting the revisions on their end. So they asked me to come on board. And when I read the original script, I gave them my thoughts, and I pitched them on A New Way, which is the version that was filmed. And they brought me on board, and it was a page 1 rewrite. It was a complete overhaul.
What is the bones of what remains of the original that's in the page 1 rewrite? What stayed?
Not a lot, to be honest. It was the original version. I vaguely remember that it was contained. It was in a house. And there was a couple, but that's it. There was no real antagonist. There was nothing really happening, right? It was almost as if though it was written just to keep the budget small, which is understandable. I mean, these days you got to write scripts that are manageable with budget. But they wanted to make sure that it was contained, but that it needed more. And also they were having some struggles with, it wasn't structured very well. And so I came in, I pitched them on the idea of this entity that's coming into the house, and that it's trying to get its hands on a baby that doesn't exist. Yeah. So without giving away too much. And so once I gave them that angle of this entity that hunts down babies to kill it, and to consume it, the producer was excited about the prospects.
Because in a way, even though it's a sort of demonic kind of force, without giving too much away, you lean into the kind of the kind of vampire lore, which is the idea of being invited in and then you ain't leaving, as opposed to it sneaks in and you've got to get rid of it, because it's not about in or out. It's like you've invited it in, so therefore you've got to live with it.
Correct. And of course there's the pandemic situation where it's you have to be careful of who you let in because you could get ill.
It's a nice subversion on that idea, to be honest with you. I did like that. Idea. So when you were doing this page one rewrite, then what do you remember being the main story challenges for you pulling that script together?
It wasn't much of a challenge. It was actually pretty seamless. The producers were very open to the ideas. They would give their notes and suggestions on certain things, of course, but they were pretty flexible. And the way that they wanted it done was I would give them 10 pages. So we would review. Yeah, it was it was a different way of going about it because typically a producer will just say, okay, go
away and come back.
Treatment. Yeah, exactly. Go and come back. But no, they wanted to do things a little different. I guess they were worried from the previous situation. They didn't want to run into a similar problem. So they were like, okay, let's do 10 pages at a time. And every week or every few days, 10 pages, we would have a meeting, a call to discuss those 10 pages. I would tweak based on of the notes and then move on to the next 10 pages. So it moved pretty well. And I rarely ran into any problems during that process. They were pretty supportive.
Okay, so that was kind of my question. Was sort of thinking about as me watching it and as a screenwriter thinking about what you might have on the page, because you flip between dream reality, and then within reality, we're not seeing what we're seeing, or we're seeing what somebody's seeing. So how did you sort of get that balance on the page? Because, when it's a read, that's a lot harder to follow than watching.
Well, the inspiration was Jacob's Ladder.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so you never really know what's real, so you're playing with that back and forth. And I would always, at least when I would write it as if though it felt real, but it really was a dream. And then, of course, I would have to reveal it was a dream to them so that they understood. But for the most part, they got what I was trying to do. And because they knew from the beginning that it was going to have a Jacob's Ladder type vibe to it, it was expected as they were reading it that there were going to be these instances and these moments. But when I would write them, I really tried to lean into, like, make sure when I wrote it that it felt dreamlike on the page. So that would be their cue that, okay, this is a little odd.
So you weren't writing, I mean, because often I'd be tempted to, brackets, dream. Well, I suppose sometimes if you don't want to spoil it, you'd say dream sequence at the end of it rather than at the beginning.
I tried not to do that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So when I would read it, they would read it as if though, I would use certain verbiage to give that feeling that it was a dream.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's because I feel like, I used to do that. I would write, dream sequence, but I feel like that sucks the reader out of the moment. If you're writing dream sequence and in a scene heading, it's almost like it's giving too much away.
No. It's a constant battle because you kind of know it'll look obvious on screen.
Correct. And then it's because I'm always thinking about the read. If going into production, you can do those things so that way, for clarity's sake. But I think in terms of the read first, but also it's tricky because it can be confusing. Sometimes a reader might read it and say, well, I don't understand what's happening here. But I would make sure to be as clear as possible so that they understood, okay, this is a dream.
Got you. Now then, when you, obviously that script then goes into production and you might not see, were you directly involved with the shoot or did you not see it till it was...
No, it took a little bit. As usually these things, you give them the script, they go and do their thing, and they attach the director Carlos Gutierrez. He's a pretty good director, and he came on board, and and then he tinkered with it and he worked on it, but I didn't have any direct connection during the production. He did the revisions that he wanted.
Now, I'm sure you enjoyed all the film as a thing, but thinking about the script and what you might have hoped or sort of been praying in your like what it'll look like and hoping for in terms of your mind's eye, is there a scene or sequence that really does come off the page like just like you imagined it, or is there a favorite, or is there a bit where it surpasses even your expectation that you remember?
It's it's kind of odd because especially the opening, the whole exchange with the couple debating whether to let this woman into the house. It was as I wrote it. So to see it unfold as I wrote it was very exciting. So there are these moments that they tickle you a little bit. You get excited, but I also try to emotionally separate myself and say, okay, well, that was whatever interpretation, whatever they did, and I don't latch myself off onto the project emotionally. I just understand this was a job. They asked me to do this job. I handed over the script. Now it's theirs. I don't. I watch it, but I understand that things are going to change. It's not going to be exact, and so I don't. I don't know. There's just there's. I guess I can detach myself that way.
I suppose it's more the fact that obviously you've imagined something and then it's come alive. I mean, obviously for the director, they're more directly involved in the casting, so I guess they've got more understanding. Their expectations can be a bit more measured because they've obviously picked the person that's going to read the lines and stuff. But you go from page to an edited sequence, and it's like I always think it's kind of fascinating, especially when it's obviously you've not directed it.
It is because you have these ideas and they start off as nothing, and then you put them on the page, and then you see them come to life. That's very exciting. But then I'll see a scene that I'm like, oh, I didn't write that, or there are these little tweaks, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to take this personally. I understand that, there are going to be changes, and, you just accept it.
I mean, I've not had them on the record, but I've had writers on, and then after we'd finished off the record, they told me, yeah, that's the script we did together. And then when it went into pre-production, the director rewrote the whole thing. And you're like, oh, that must be soul destroying to sort of work with someone, sign it off, and then it disappear into a void. And come out.
I didn't sense that there were a lot of changes. If there were changes, there were dialogue changes, but a large portion of what I wrote was there.
Thank you for sharing that bit of insight into the process of a hired screenwriter working on a movie. That's very, very informative. Stay Safe is available on Tubi to watch now and Prime, as I can now see on IMDb as well. And we can now move into three movies, that have changed your life. Are you ready for this?
I will do my best.
Right then, for those that haven't heard this before, Rolando's given me three movies, and we're going to do them in the order that he's given me. And every time we hear this sound, that will mean that the 5 minutes are up and we'll move on to the next film. First up, we have a film that features the 17th most iconic villain in the American Film Institute's list of 100 heroes and villains. It was concocted by two heavyweights of Hollywood, screenplay by William Goldman, directed by Rob Reiner. I'm talking about Misery from 1990, adapted from Stephen King's novel of the same name, and featuring arguably career bests from Kathy Bates and James Caan in this horrifying story of a famous author being rescued, but then being subjected to a nightmare of captivity and abuse. Fun facts, Stephen King was initially reluctant to sell the film rights of Misery because he was skeptical, I'm guessing from his Shining experience. But then Stand By Me was such a good experience for him and he enjoyed the film so much, he agreed to sell it, but only if Rob Reiner was producing or directing it, that's quite a nice position to be in, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So tell me then, why is Misery a film that changed your life?
Well, first I'd say that I was fortunate to be a teenager in the 90s.
Okay.
Because I feel the 90s was a great decade for films and independent films. But Stephen King was, the kind of writer that grabbed me. And I would read his books and I felt that, there was something intriguing about the worlds that he would build. And Misery, I'd read when I was, I want to say 12, maybe 13. And when I heard that this movie was coming out, I was excited. I was tickled pink, and I went to go watch it. And there was just something that grabbed me about that movie, the performances, just the fact that it was contained and it was edge of your seat. There was just something that was calling me, that was saying, I want to make these kinds of movies. Even early on, I would always go watch movies all the time, watch 3-4 movies every weekend, get dropped off when I was like 10 years old at the movie theater. And so, but seeing this film at 14, that impacted me. And I want to say it was a kernel. It was like a seed that was planted that paved the way for me to write in this particular genre.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You kind of became conscious. This is something that you want to.
I was so excited afterwards, and I was thinking about the book and comparing the book. Obviously, the book is a lot more violent, if you can believe it. But it got me to get a sense of what might be possible. So Stephen King, I'd say I'd give him credit for that, for inspiring me.
And what do you think about like what William Goldman did then with the source material? What did he do? Because he clearly, I think he elevated it in some senses, even though it's not all there.
Oh, of course. No, definitely. Now, keep in mind, I was a teenager at the time. I didn't know who William Goldman was. I didn't.
Nor did I, to be fair.
And so, but in hindsight, yes. He did some things beautifully because in the book, spoiler alert if you haven't read the book, she chops off his feet.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it's he gets hobbled. Thankfully his feet didn't get chopped off in the movie. So there are all those little decisions, but for the most part, the film is, I think Quentin Tarantino said, I think he talked about the perfect film, and it's not that it's perfect or it's flawless. It's just overall, it is a solid film from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And it made its imprint on me.
No, because it makes you believe that the only world that exists. Oh well, we'll never know. To be fair, I was just going to say, like when you've got contained thriller horrors like this, you did believe that the world only existed between those two people. Though you felt as trapped as the character did. Watching the film.
Yeah. Well, it's also a reminder that humans, are the most dangerous animal on the planet. People want to say it's sharks it's human beings have the capacity to be very evil. And I like to take that and put it in my stories as much as I can.
Yeah. And I think as well, in a kind of, I guess in a progressive sense, we're used to woman in peril. We're not used to man in peril stories, especially when the aggressor is a woman. And the way that was balanced up or the way that was exploited, isn't she nice? Isn't she nice? Until she's not. And then suddenly he can't be a patronizing charmer.
Well, it's you think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's Nurse Ratched.
Yeah.
It's where she's evil, even though she may not look it, like she's just trying to do her job. But I don't know about that. She's up to something.
Second up, we've another Stephen King story as the source material, and it's the one that King considers his favorite film adaptation of his works. Frank Darabont's adaptation of The Shawshank Redemption, about a banker serving a life sentence in Shawshank prison, where he forms an unlikely friendship with a seasoned inmate and clings to hope of one day being free amid the cruelty and corruption. Fun fact, Frank Darabont is said to have watched Goodfellas every Sunday while shooting the film and drew inspiration from its use of voiceover narration and showing the passage of time, which makes perfect sense now I think about it. I didn't know that till I did a bit of research. And Stephen King said that his original Shawshank novella was a culmination of all of his memories he had of prison movies he saw when he was a kid. So tell me, Rolando, why did Shawshank Redemption change your life?
Well, I mean, arguably, it's one of the greatest films ever made. Arguably, I think at AFI's, it's like the top. It's in the AFI's top 100, and I think it's I don't know. I think it's the highest rated film on IMDb, but I don't know if
it's definitely had that accolade at certain times.
Yeah, sure, but I'd say because I knew that Stephen King it was based off of a novella that got me excited. Keep in mind, I don't think anybody watched it when it came out.
I saw it. Interestingly, I did see this one in the cinema. I was one of the few people that caught it in the cinema. It was very much a VHS success. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, but I watched it. I was about 17 at the time, and I watched it. I loved it. But what I loved was the fact that it showed Stephen King's range as far as a storyteller. That it wasn't to go from misery and then. Obviously, a novella that is that it doesn't include all this horror,
Yeah.
But the ending is considered. I want to say one of the greatest endings in history, aside from The Usual Suspects, and but the film to me was just perfect, and it stayed with me. And every time it comes on or I see it, I pop it on just to watch, even if it's a few minutes of it, because it is, like I said earlier, it is a perfect film. For me to really find any flaws in it, I mean, it's a struggle for me. I think it's excellent.
Absolutely, and because even though it isn't an overt horror film, it's not a film without horrors, is it?
Correct. Yeah.
But again, it goes back to what you said before, which is those damn humans, they aren't half baddies.
Humans, they're the most dangerous animal on the planet. There's some good ones, of course. There's some good ones.
Of course. I mean, not all humans, as they say.
I'm not a total misanthrope. I'm maybe like 30% misanthrope.
So do you see, with a film that had such impact as this did, do you see any influence in your writing or how you think about making a movie, designing a script for a movie from films like this?
Now keep in mind, as a teenager, I had no sense that I was going to write scripts per se, because I didn't even know how to write scripts. I would try. I mean, I assumed it's like a play, so I would just dabble with it, but I had no training as a teenager. I just knew that I had this urge, like, I want to make these kinds of films, even though I lean more toward thrillers.
Yeah.
I still appreciate, a film, even if it's not a thriller, and so in this case, it expanded my palette as far as what I could like. So I can, drama is not really a genre that I write, but I really appreciated the film itself, and it got me to think in terms of, well, could I write something like this? And so, I even naively tried to do an adaptation of The Langoliers
Okay.
I've read the Steve, and I tried to do this when I was maybe 15 or 16.
Finish your thought.
Well, I mean, and of course, I couldn't finish it because I was like, "This is just too much. I can't adapt this. This is too much for me to tackle." But as a teenager, again, I had that. It was pulling me in that direction.
That's amazing, though. Yeah. That's amazing that you even just to try it. I mean,
as a challenge, as a challenge. Just like, oh, I think this should be a movie. Or, of course, they did the TV series, but. Which came out, I think, a few years ago.
Right. Okay.
But at the time, I thought, oh, this would make a good film. And so I took a stab at it, just, I guess, as a challenge, but I failed.
Yeah, I mean, because it is, I mean, I've done a couple of book adaptations for developing TV series, and it is a different skill. And in fact, weirdly, I found it blunted my skills in terms of writing scripts from scratch. You had to kind of get back into the flow of that because adaptation is about what do you need, what's there, what's not there, what do I need to put in? But the answers are within a source material. Whereas when you write things speculatively or from scratch with someone, there is no source material. There's just where your imagination, what cul-de-sacs or openings you create yourself, isn't it?
Exactly. And so it's a whole other challenge, but I mean, I hope that one day I'll be able to adapt or get hired to adapt a novel for someone. But I can definitely see that it could be a huge challenge. I mean, I read let's say Project Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And then I watched the film, and I obviously they you could tell that they did their best to try to incorporate as much as possible, but it would have been just impossible to.
Yeah, one of my biggest lessons in terms of understanding the process of adaptation was the Australian film Waking Fright, and I was a big fan of the film, and then I got hold of the book it was based on, and just in very simple terms, you realise that the Donald Pleasance character is all the voices in the main character's head in the book. So, which was a really clever idea. I mean, in the book, you can afford for someone to go, "Oh, I've got doubts, I've got this, but in a film, that'd be a lot of voiceover and it'd be boring. So, to then transpose essentially all the thoughts that you needed to come out and make it an attack by another character who's in the book, so it's not like they invented a character, but they gave the character a different purpose than they did in the book, which I thought was really clever. Finally, we have Quentin Tarantino's ode to those crime-ridden novels, often with a kind of yellow stain around the pages on the edges that you find in newsstands. Pulp Fiction from 1994, the non-linear of all non-linear stories, that's almost behaves like an anthology movie as it unpacks the lives of two hitmen, a boxer, a gangster and his wife, and a pair of diner bandits as they intertwine into 4 tales of violence and redemption. Fun fact, and this blows my mind really, given how much he's worked with her, Uma Thurman turned down the role of Mia Wallace, and it would take Quentin Tarantino reading her the script over the phone to convince her to take it.
Wow.
Plus, the word fuck is used 265 times. And this is really surprising. It was one of the first movies to use the internet for advertising.
Oh, really?
Yeah, indeed. Nice. But tell me, why does this movie have impact on you, and what did it change in your life?
I remember when it came out. Now, I used to manage movie theaters.
Okay.
I did it for 16 years. And I remember I was working at a small theater called the Miller Square.
Yeah.
And it played there. And it was a breath of fresh air.
Okay.
To see this movie. I'd started really taking writing more seriously, but I was about 18, and so I was still fairly young and just naive about a lot of things, but it gave me the permission to think differently about writing, because most stories are linear and this was different. It was basically saying, you don't have to write in a straight line.
Mm.
You know? And even when I write scripts, I don't write in order. I will write scenes out based off of what scene I enjoy or what I want to write. So I don't write linearly.
I'm trying to do that, but I do find it hard. There isn't even.
It's a challenge because you have to connect the dots. Now I outline typically.
Yeah.
But then what I do is I just I'll want to write a scene that is that's just exciting me because that energy I think translates onto the page.
Mm.
But now, don't get me wrong. If a producer is hiring me to write, and I try to do it as much in order as possible. Yeah. But if I'm writing spec, I don't adhere to that. I try to write what excites me. And but getting back to Pulp Fiction, it was especially 1994 was such a great year because that's the same year that Shawshank Redemption came out, and
I graduated that year.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah. And we're aging ourselves.
It's inevitable.
But that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, it to me, it's and a fun fact. I met Quentin Tarantino. He had visited the movie theater I was working at, the Mayfair.
Yeah,
and it was in '94, and he had produced a horror film in a small area of Miami called Coral Gables, called Curdled.
Okay, I don't know that film.
And he was very nice. He came in. He's like, "Hey, can I sit in the rear of the theater to talk to the customers after the movie to see what they think of the movie Curdled?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, go right ahead." And I wanted so badly because I have the original Pulp Fiction poster, and I wanted to go home to get that poster to get him to sign it, and I couldn't leave the theater. I was the only manager at the time that was on that shift, so I just settled for a Curdled poster. He was nice enough to sign it for me, but very nice guy. But to see the director of a movie that excited me at the time when it came out and blew me away it's definitely it's a memory that's always gonna stick with me for sure.
Absolutely. So you say you were managing a cinema when this film came out?
Oh yeah.
So do you in that sense then, because obviously it's now canonized as a zeitgeist moment, could you sense something different in terms of the audiences coming in at the time?
Oh, you know what it is? It's I remember at the time, we had it in a small auditorium, but it was always it had a decent crowd because of word of mouth. People were curious about it, but the movie has so many moments in it that stick with you, and whenever we'd finish a shift, I knew.
Finish your thought.
I knew a particular scene at what time it was going to happen. So I would finish counting the money from the concessions and then deposit it and then run to the back of the auditorium to watch that particular moment. Any moment that I could capture, it, be there for just 2 minutes. And of course, then I had to leave because I had to work. But it was a movie that was pulling me into the auditorium, and I would stand in the back to hear the reactions of the customers and just see their faces as they're watching these scenes that I had already watched. It was pretty sweet.
I mean, I've not heard Tarantino. I don't think I've heard Tarantino talk directly about Pulp Fiction, but I have listened to the commentary on Reservoir Dogs, my DVD that I've got. It's got a commentary on it. And he rails against the notion that it's non-linear because he says his defense is, he says, and this is talking about, because Reservoir Dogs obviously isn't in linear order either. It's not quite as, well, no, it is. It's very much episodic because it's obviously the different characters, isn't it? But what he says is, this is the order the story should be told in. It's not non-linear. This is how you need to tell the story, which I think is an interesting way to describe it. I mean, it's still non-linear, literally, but I get his point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just nonlinear in the traditional sense. I mean, he likes to write in chapters, and but it was different and it was refreshing at the time, and it got me to see that you don't always have to do things the way that it's always been done. You can play with it. You can shake things up. And even though the truth is the industry, they prefer not taking risks like that. Indeed. Just be very standard. But as a writer, it's exciting to know that, you know what, the truth is you can write whatever you want. That's the truth. You can write whatever you want. Now, whether they're going to buy it is a whole other story, but you can express yourself however you'd like as a writer and just do it and see what comes of it.
Indeed. And also, as much as people tend to be conservative because they're risk averse, the contradictory fact to that is the film and TV business is an outlier business. So trying to second guess what everyone wants is a fool's errand in a way.
It is. I mean, you see movies like, say Obsession, that I think is right now, it's all of a sudden Hollywood is scouring Reddit posts, or looking on YouTube to see who if they can find the next Obsession director. It's just funny because it's very copycat.
Indeed. Well, look, thank you for sharing 3 movies that changed your life. That was very generous of you. And thank you for giving us a bit of an insight into the writing of Stay Safe. It just gives me to say thank you very much for giving us your time on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I had a good time.
Hey, Bandit, me and Fred's got a question.
What do you and Fred want?
How come we doing this?
Well, why not?
Well, they said it couldn't be done.
Well, that's the reason, son.
3 movies that have changed your life.
How long have you been a robber?
4'1".
Good Lord. Jolly good. 4'1".
Yes.
Well, that is a long time.
3 movies that have changed your life.
John, I want this material burned. All of it.
What happens when Toys R Us kids grow up and become parents? We become co-hosts of the show where geeky fathers unite to share the joys, challenges, and hilarity of navigating parenthood. Because bringing a grown-up doesn't mean you stop being a fan. It just means your sidekicks call you Dad. And Potteration means I'm proud of you, son. Find Wise and Nerdy everywhere that you consume your media and podcasts. We are a proud member of Potteration.